everyone, this is Big Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you. And following the recent coverage of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, I thought it'd be interesting to look back at one of his non-Superman efforts. So here I'll be reflecting on the very underrated drama thriller titled Street Smart. The movie was released back in March 20th, 1987. It is of course starring Christopher Reeve in the lead role, alongside Morgan Freeman in one of his early roles, Kathy Baker, Mimi Rogers, and the movie was directed by Jerry Schtarzberg. The film follows the story of magazine reporter Jonathan Fisher, who is based in New York City and is chasing a big news story. He sells an idea to his editors of following the profile of a street life pimp to gain an insight into his thoughts and character and why he does what he does. His editor eventually agrees and Jonathan sets about his work but struggles to find a worthy subject to interview. He even goes as far to baiting his girlfriend Alison into attracting the pimp within the bar, but this goes horribly wrong as she is seriously threatened. With his deadline looming and still no interview to subject, Jonathan decides to make the story up, basing it on a real-life pimp named Leo Fast Black Smalls, who himself is facing charges of a second-degree murder. Using the alias Tyrone as his subject, Jonathan gets his story published and the article reaches universal acclaim and success. It also majorly boosts Jonathan's career, earning him the top presenter role for the Street Smart news segment. Now things in the beginning are going great, but eventually they start to spiral out of control, as his bosses want to meet Tyrone. Jonathan faces further pressure from prosecution lawyer Leonard Pike, who recognises that Tyrone's story is all about Leo, and that the story will make Smalls a celebrity figure and gain favour for his defence. Through meeting one of Leo's prostitutes named Punchy, Jonathan meets Leo eventually, and after discussing the article, Leo agrees to masquerade as Tyrone and meet Jonathan's bosses. In return, Jonathan will create fake news notes to provide Leo with an alibi and help dismiss his charges. After spending time with Leo, Jonathan eventually discovers his true dark nature and his viciousness as he beats up other street members and also threatens prostitutes. As Leo's influence grows, Jonathan soon finds both his and Alison's lives in grave danger. Now, in looking back at Street Smart, is a very engaging setup that carries more weight and depth as the story progresses, and it actually surprises you where the movie goes. Tonally, it starts off as a very bright and breezy and very loose, almost like a comedy drama. When we get to the point where we see Leo mingling with all of the media celebrities at a party, you actually think that this will be some sort of Eddie Murphy type of 80s comedy in the same vein as, let's say, a Beverly Hills Cop or Trading Places, where the eccentric black personality shines within the white aristocratic society. But then the movie does surprise you and goes into far more darker territory with much more serious themes. The movie first becomes a hard-edged urban thriller, and actually more interestingly, a dark commentary and cautionary tale on the fabrication of fake news and the real life implications and consequences that can have. We see moral choices and dilemmas from all of the characters, and it makes the story even more engaging. We see this aspect mostly through the lead character Jonathan, who admittedly isn't driven by money or fame. The kind of success that he attains really happens by luck, but he's more than happy to ride the wave of success. It's only when he sees his life threatened, potentially with prison, that he starts to see the error of his ways. The film does provide some insights also into the dangers faced by sex workers, with some of the movie's most intense moments as we see they're threatened by Leo and the overall fear and trauma feels real. The film then looks at the media obsessions with criminal figures, looking at them more as celebrity figures, and far more focus on their notoriety and personality rather than the crimes that they commit. Again, as Leo is introduced to the media personalities, we could say that this is a white society condescending to the black individual, that they see him as a figure of fun, of entertainment, a clown jester, and that they'll only accept black people if they fit within certain stereotypes. So there's so much going on here that keeps the movie very interesting and to an extent unpredictable. And the movie is driven by three central performances. Of course, we focus first on Christopher Reeve, and admittedly, still today, it's difficult to separate the legacy and association of Superman when we look at him in his other roles. But in this film here, he does a solid performance, as his character Jonathan isn't an opportunistic or self-absorbed personality, nor is he the idealistic journalist, and I think that was something that was very deliberate from Christopher Reeve, perhaps wanting to play something different rather than the ultimate heroic role, something to try and stretch his range. And this character is much more of a wimpy, naive personality, but ultimately he does attempt to do, if not the right thing, but certainly what is overall the just thing to do. We then look at Kathy Baker as Punchy, who in the beginning is very savvy, smart, sexy and resourceful, but later on we see her true vulnerability and peril, as she also yearns to strive away from the life of a prostitute, and you do really feel for her as she becomes constantly under pressure and under threat. And she is easily the most likeable and most sympathetic character of the piece. But without question, the true driving performance here is Morgan Freeman as Leo. In the beginning, we see him very charismatic and somewhat very laid back, and again, very likeable enough to begin with, and convinced me in the early stages that this was turning out to be a much more light-hearted comedy. But when we get to the scene where he takes Jonathan around the streets and this leads to a basketball game where he's playing alongside other youths, this is when we see Leo's anger truly manifest itself. And it really is a frightening occurrence that takes you off guard. And this is suddenly a character that is much more of a psychopath, though still remaining very smart, intelligent and articulate, which in many ways makes him even more dangerous. And that sense of danger is at its most potent as we see Leo pinning Punchy against the wall and he threatens to take her eyes out with a pair of scissors. It's an absolutely terrifying scene and underlines a compelling performance from Freeman. So often he is referred to as the cinematic statesman of movies, defined by iconic supporting roles where he plays much more of the experienced mentor or father figure. So it's so good to see him here in a completely different fashion, in a role that you wouldn't really expect to see from Freeman, and it's a sharp reminder of how versatile an actor he is, and absolutely great that this was a very early starring performance, that he would go on later to forge a career that is universally loved amongst nearly all movie fans, and it actually turns out to be one of the best performances of his long-time filmography. So we then move on to the movie's box office, and sadly Street Smart didn't perform very well, only managing to barely gross $1 million from a $6 million budget. It was commercially a disappointment, especially for Christopher Reeve, who had for years been searching for funding for the project and had only returned for the disastrous Superman 4: The Quest for Peace in order to secure funding for the film. Still, the movie did gain very good critical reception, most notably for Morgan Freeman's performance, who secured his first of many Oscar nominations for a role incredibly that he started out at 50 years old, and this is what really was considered his early breakthrough within movies. But overall, Street Smart is still definitely worth a watch. It's a movie that is very underrated and forgotten about, sadly, but really is credible, for it takes a very serious look at the dangers of the fabrication of fake news and the overall devastating real-life effects that it can have. And for that important message, definitely is a movie that deserves far more appreciation than it got. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings when looking back at Street Smart. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you have any other further movies, television series, or any other topics with the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know in the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.